Hey, what is up, nerds, geeks, and collectors alike? Today we are taking a look at the Transformers Generations Legacy Evolution Voyager class comic universe Tarn. And man, I gotta tell you, I for one am very excited for this figure. I think he's the most anticipated among his entire wave. So, first, let's take a look at the packaging. Here we have an amazing artwork of Tarn's alt mode at the front, as well as his name, Comic Universe Tarn, in this windowless type box. At the side, here we have an amazing artwork of the Legacy Collection, and I can't help but notice we do have an artwork of Armada Prime at the upper left right here, which many fans have been asking for a long time. At the back here we have our obligatory product shots as well as the evolution. Weirdly enough, he doesn't have a bio. At the side here we have an amazing artwork of Tarn this time instead of the Legacy Collection. It looks pretty cool in my opinion. And at the top here we have the Transformers Legacy Evolution as well as a QR code, but I think that's where his bio is at. And at the bottom here we have the legal mumbo jumbo as well as the UPC. And here we have Tarn on hand, and they really did a pretty good job capturing his look from the comics. Taking a closer look at the head sculpt here, it's very nice. The painting as well as the sculpting of this figure is phenomenal. I'm really happy with the copy I got. I hope that Hasbro was able to maintain this type of consistency with the copies of the figure, because the one I got is a stellar copy. The paint as well as the sculpt, I have no complaints, and how Hasbro executed Tarn, I am very happy with this figure. And one of the highlights for me is Tarn having light piping, which is a lost art unfortunately. Very few recent Transformers figures incorporates this gimmick. At this point, we'll take what we can get with light piping. Now, going back to the generalities of the figure, Tarn does have two shades of purple, two shades of gray, as well as some gold, and parts of him are made of this translucent plastic, the same plastic used for the light piping, which I would like to note as well as look out for, since translucent plastic tends to easily break. I want to keep my eye on these particular parts in order to prevent breakage. Moving on to the accessories, Tarn does have these cannons as well as this, let's call it an adapter, and his adapter can be configured in different ways. What I'm currently doing here is what the instruction tells us to do. This is what I think is the default, and in order to figure that out, what you want to do is put the iron sight at the bottom of the cannon right there, and as you can see there are two ports, and in order for it to look seamless, again, this will depend on you and how you want to configure the arm cannon. I just port it like that, and I would put this as neatly as possible. Again, this will depend on you. Now, breaking these apart, he does have a configuration for the cannons to be mounted on his back, which is a reference to his packaging. And snapping this here and the other one there, this is the most ideal as it can be. And what you want to do is swing these down, make sure to move his hands and just peg it right there. And here we have Tarn with his cannons over his shoulder. Now, to me, I won't be displaying my figure like this, and I know the majority of you also won't be displaying Tarn with his cannons over his shoulders, because we all know we'd like to configure Tarn with his ion cannon on his wrist. But we do have one more configuration, which is the Evo Fusion, according to the back of the packaging. And here we have Tarn, but I don't see anyone posing him like this. So what I like to do is make my own configuration with the arm cannon. Just move this here and peg this at the back instead of the front, and I think that looks cleaner. Again, it will be up to you, it's your preference. Now moving on to articulation, Tarn can move his head side to side that far. He can't do a full 360 because of the kibble. He can barely look up, barely look down, again because of the kibble. And for his shoulders, he can move them that far up, and oops, that's for later actually. They can do a 360 just like that, and you actually have some more articulation at the bicep. That's more for the transformation, but you know, you can still utilize that for the robot mode for posing. And he does have some bicep swivel and a 90-degree bend at the elbow, as well as a wrist swivel and some opening hands, which is a nice addition to articulation. And the other arm retains the same level of posability even with the cannon installed. I like the fact that the cannon doesn't weigh down the figure. He has a waist swivel which can't go the entire 360, but it is an awesome range. He can kick that far up and then move his feet that far back. Though his skirt does tend to hinder posability right here, so if you want to access that, you want to move the feet either front or back before you can access the full split from side to side. And bringing the arms down, he does have a thigh swivel as well as a 90-degree bend. He does have another joint here, but that's more for the transformation, but you know, we'll take what we can get. And we have double jointed knees for Tarn, which is pretty cool. It's nice to have that there. It's like it's strategically placed in order for us to access that. And he does have a fair amount of range on the feet, and that's more for the transformation, but again, let's take what we can get. And snapping that back out, he does also have a fair amount of range with the pivot. So this guy is highly posable, and he does hold his poses very well. And for some size comparisons, first let's measure Tarn. Tarn sits just a little below 6.5 inches, and here we have Siege Megatron, which stands a little below 7 inches. I don't really know how accurate this is. I don't know if Megatron is supposed to be taller and bulkier, but to my eyes they look pretty good together. Now let's move on to the transformation. And here we have Tarn in his Cybertronian Decepticon Justice Division tank mode. And I gotta say, basing on the references that I've seen from the comics, this is pretty accurate. And everything you see up here is robot parts. Therefore, there are no fall parts here, there are no fake windows, no fake anything. What you see in the robot mode are incorporated into the vehicle mode. The only nitpick I have, and take note, I did say nitpick, not actually a problem, are the hands right here. It's just weird to see a fist at the back of a tank, as well as wheels that are molded in, but they're not separate plastic, therefore they do not roll. But they are molded in, so there was an idea to have wheels that actually move. And moving on to the size comparison, as you can see right here, Tarn is a little above 2 inches in his alt mode, and he is 5.5 inches long, and that's from front to back, and that's counting the knee pads. And again, Megatron is bigger, he's bulkier, and I think they're in the same level, at least here in the alt mode, and their tank modes at least. And here's a side to side for the figures, and again, there's no competition. Megatron is a lot bigger than Tarn. As you can see right there, their backs are actually at equal length. So you see, without a shadow of a doubt, Megatron is a lot bigger than Tarn. Again, I don't know how accurate that is because I've only seen a few panels of the comic. To summarize my thoughts on this figure, first I would like to note that this is my first Transformers Legacy figure. I say that because my first gripe is, again, the packaging. I know a lot of people are displeased with it, myself included. I don't like the fact that my figures are exposed to the elements long before I purchased them. Going back to the figure itself, my copy of Tarn in terms of sculpt and paint are perfect. I have no complaints whatsoever. And in terms of execution, I think, again, it's perfect. One of the perks of having a Cybertronian alt mode for a Transformer means that you have a perfect representation for the robot mode, which is rare. Usually the robot mode is sacrificed in favor for the alt mode, but in this case it's the other way around, and I personally like that. For the figure form representation of Tarn, basing on the comic books for both his robot mode as well as his alt mode, they're pretty accurate, surprisingly enough. I'd even say that this guy is masterpiece level. They just need to upscale it, they just need to fix a couple of things, such as more paint, diecast, and maybe some wheels this time. But there are some fans who are hoping to get the entire Decepticon Justice Division. So I gotta say, robot mode, perfect. Alt mode, perfect. Paint and sculpt, no guarantees actually, because we all know Hasbro is inconsistent in terms of quality, but I do hope that they maintain this level of quality. And if you do get this guy at his 100%, he will absolutely leave you wanting more. And 2023 just started, but this guy just might take the cake this early on. So that's about it. Till next time, see ya!